Welcome back to the baby boomer generation retirement time bomb. What a great title, huh? It's not as bad as it sounds, but a good title can pique people's interest, yes? We have a serious problem. Between 1940 and 2010, the average lifespan increased by 15 years. While, as we saw in the previous presentation, the retirement age for Social Security only increased by 2 years. Disconnect there. In 1940, there were very few retirees per worker. Most workers, particularly men, simply didn't live to 65. Now, not only do most workers reach retirement, their retirement lasts an average of 16 to 20 years. Remember, that sounds like a test question, right? Every day for the next 10 or so years or so, 10,000 people will have their 65th birthday. Wow. What has happened? Well, in 1940, we had 30 workers for every one retiree, 30 to 1. By 2010, we had 3 workers for every one retiree, 3 to 1. And by 2050, we'll have only 1.5 workers for every one retiree. This sounds serious. And you hear some people say, we need to have more children. Well, that's a whole other political issue, isn't it? And we stick with us. Let's first ask the question, how did we manage to go from 30 workers per retiree down to 3 workers per retiree without significant economic upheaval? Well, when we go back through history over the last several decades, we find that, we understand why. It's really not that difficult. First of all, we went from 30 to 1 to 15 to 1 by simply having 2 worker families. 2 worker families became the norm. It used to be that daddy went to work and fondled the secretary and mommy stayed home and slapped the kids. And I'm sorry, a sick version of the 1950s. No, so we go, boom, 30 to 1 to 15 to 1 right there. Plus, productivity gains have been substantial with technological improvements. The office of today is very different from the office of 60, 70 years ago. And quite simply, as the number of retirees grew, the number of children per worker diminished. Therefore, the ratio of workers to dependents has stayed roughly the same. The only difference is that the dependents have shifted from little niños running around to abuelitos. You see, there's a reason I'm one of them, reason we are called the baby boom generation. In the 1950s, 60s, 4, 6, 7 children, that was considered normal. If you only had 1 or 2 children, there was something fishy about that family, probably communist sympathizers, because it was your patriotic duty after World War II to have as many little Americans as you could to beat the Ruskies. Yeah, I'm sorry. But see what's happened? We've replaced all the little children with elderly retirees. Oh, okay. So the problem is twofold. Baby boomers, baby boom generation folks have not saved enough money for the retirement. And I wish I had saved this link to this interview. A gentleman said it, and every time I say it, I sound like I'm sing-songing, but he said it just a matter of fact. Unless a big bucket of cash falls out of the sky, I'm going to be working until I die. Which, that's some people's retirement planning. Well, you know what? I'm just going to keep working. Healthcare, yeah, right. There will not also be enough workers to service the economy, resulting in labor shortages. Do you notice that people all have for hire signs out? Employees needed? Let alone the demand from healthcare and other services that retirees will need. Remember, the average person between ages 60 and 70 uses more medical resources than they did between ages 0 and 59, and 1/3 of all Medicare dollars are spent in the last year of life. So this is something that we're seeing now. We're seeing that there are not enough workers. And that's why people are saying we need to have more children. And a few people are saying, no, you don't understand. This is the United States. We have always grown our economy by immigration. Well, that's a whole other political issue, isn't it? And throughout time, it's either been encouraged or discouraged, or sometimes physically, violently discouraged, like now with certain individuals. But that's how we've done it in the past. So we'll see what's going on in the future. What are some of the possible solutions? Well, let's take a look at financial solutions. Aggressive saving by baby boomers and Gen Xers. You know, everyone over 50 should be socking away the new maximum limits into their 401ks, their IRAs, etc. But unfortunately, it's not happening. Well, I, again, urge you to go back over the investment chapters and realize that if you start early, indeed, you won't have to be socking away over $20,000 a year to fund your retirement. How about raising Social Security taxes? Well, you see, right now, once you hit in 2022 $147,000, you no longer pay Social Security taxes. So this was almost 20 years ago when George Bush the younger was president and said we need to shore up Social Security. And one of the things that people said right away, well, why don't you just remove the income limit? And he said, I didn't mean that. Older people generally have more sway traditionally with politicians, but the problem is it's a recipe for intergenerational warfare. If nothing changes, which of course everything changes, but if everything were to stay the same and we just raise Social Security taxes, they'd have to double from approximately 8% up to 16% because we're going from 3 workers down to 1.5 workers. I understand why the limit on $140,000 is there. It's because once you make a certain amount of money in Social Security, they don't give you more, right? It doesn't. Once you're making hundreds of thousands or more, they don't up your Social Security. They cap it. So they cap the taxes. That makes sense. But at the same time, okay, it does look kind of, what do they say, the optics. It doesn't look good that very well-off people pay fewer as a percentage Social Security taxes than the others. How about lowering Social Security benefits? Oh boy. Traditionally, seniors have had more sway with politicians, and they have canes, folks. They get very, very angry if you talk about lowering their Social Security benefits. Another recipe for intergenerational warfare. The Bush administration's Bush the younger, 2005 proposal would have reduced benefits by up to 49% for many workers over the next several decades, and that would have hit the middle class the hardest, so there's no surprise there. But that went absolutely nowhere, and most politicians don't really want to talk about Social Security. They call it the third rail. But we're going to have to. We're going to have to discuss something. And it's not that Social Security is going bankrupt. Please don't mimic that. It's just that it won't be able to pay out what it is promised. And that's an issue, right? Eventually, we're going to have to deal with it. And we will, I hope. And let's continue with the possible solutions. Investing Social Security in the stock market. Well, you don't hear too much about this anymore. After the Great Recession, the stock market crash. The problem is that it's very costly. Chile did this many years ago. They did it. If we had done it many years ago, it would have been a whole lot easier, because the problem is you have to still fund the individuals who were not able to put money away. The idea was to have a 401k plan, a defined contribution plan for individuals. So Chile did something like this. It was a combination, and I haven't read anything about it lately, but it made a lot of sense. But right now for us, it's just too costly, and these numbers I'm sure are way too low. It would cost trillions of dollars because the current beneficiaries still need to be funded, and if you're taking the money that would be used to fund the current retirees and putting it into individual retirement accounts like a 401k, then you got to come up with the money for the people who are retired now. So that's not too popular. You don't hear about it anymore. The problem, though, is that financial solutions alone will not work. Okay, follow us here. I think if you follow us. An economy consists of both supply and demand. Let's assume boomers have saved enough for their retirement. In other words, everybody has enough money for retirement. If there are not enough goods and services to service the demand, in other words, there is insufficient supply, the result will be large-scale inflation of goods and services or large-scale deflation of financial assets. And we're seeing the first, and this has nothing to do with retirement, it has to do with the pandemic. What happened is we shut down the economy, which, and we've talked about this a little bit, I think, maybe, and of course we could spend hours on just this one topic. And there were people who were saying, no, don't do that. Keep the economy up and let a lot of people die. And the others say, well, wait a minute, you don't understand. If we keep the economy going, a lot more people are going to die. Plus, a lot of people are going to be out of work the economy is going to shut down on its own. So by shutting down the economy, the economists knew that when we came back, when we started to bring it back, there was going to be a lot of supply disruptions. This is what we hear about the supply chain and that and the like. And that's why we've had this horrible inflation. And then the problem is it creeps into the other parts of the economy where people say, wait a minute, I want to raise. And so it's an issue. It's an issue. It's supply problem. So if there is enough demand, but there's not enough supply, then we get serious repercussions like we're having now. See, if I save more than everyone else, then I'm fine. I can retire without a problem because there's enough goods and services to supply my needs. But if all of us old folks save more, then all of us are going to want the same goods and services. Everyone will be bidding up the prices of healthcare, leisure, retirement housing. Or we're going to have to accept lower prices for our saved financial assets since everyone will be trying to sell them at the same time to pay for the same goods and services. Now, many people have looked at that saying, you don't understand, the stock market's going to crash because the baby boomers are going to sell at the same time. Well, we're not. We're not going to all sell at the same time. We're going to be selling over the next 20, 30 years if we're smart, right? And the youngest generations, the millennials as they're called and the Gen Z, they are far more savvy when it comes to retirement and it comes to savings. Now, they're a little bit, in my humble opinion, too enamored with the technology, and I have my beef with Robinhood and the like, but they know, hey, I got to start putting money away now for the future. So you see, there's that intergenerational transfer of assets. And, some of this is going to happen one way or the other. People accepting lower prices and bidding up the services. And we see that happening. But it's not going to be the disaster. And it has not so far been the disaster that many people thought it would be. How about economic solutions? Well, increased productivity is always a good thing for any economy, but it's the same problem as increasing taxes. You must share that increased productivity with the people who are not retired, who are still working. And it will help the economy substantially, but not necessarily the goods and services that retirees need. I mean, there is a revolution now going on in healthcare with productivity, so we should be very happy about that and we should applaud that. But it's just difficult. Many of the goods and services that retirees need are very labor intensive. Oh, wow. How about increasing developing world emerging market trade, the next engine of world economic growth? But the problem, again, is that retirement goods and services are not easily traded across the globe. How do you trade healthcare across the globe? Well, as we said, this technological improvements will allow your surgeon to be in South Africa while you're here in San Diego cutting out your appendix. Pretty amazing, right? How do you trade golf memberships across the globe? Remember the surgery vacations? Remember retiring abroad? And we're going to have to reallocate the workforce. Way back in chapter 1, we said healthcare. 1 person in 5 will be working in some way or another in the healthcare industry. Yeah, okay. What about demographic solutions? Now, that's a fancy word for population, study of population. We've already mentioned immigration as one of the ways to solve our problems, and one of the ways that the United States, literally before our inception, we grew our economy. Well, have you ever visited a nursing home or assisted living facility? It's like the United Nations, which is great because we need these people. But to maintain the same ratio of workers to retirees, we would need approximately 85 million immigrants, if nothing else changed. And of course, everything is changing. But you think this is politically going to be allowed? It's very sad, folks. You might call me a bleeding heart, fuzzy-headed liberal, but I want to make money and I want the economy to grow, and I'm a capitalist, and we need people to service the economy. And so we need more immigrants, and if you don't like it, I'm sorry, but it's the truth. It's what we've done in the past, and it's always worked for us. I don't want to bet against the United States, and I certainly don't want to hurt things that have helped us in the past and worked for us. Okay, let's not get on a political discussion. Anyway, how about kicking us all out? Let's get rid of these boomers. Retirement abroad, Costa Rica, anyone? Me encantaría jubilarme en Mexico. I would love to retire in Mexico someday. I don't think it's going to happen. I love teaching here and I love San Diego, so I go visit a lot. But the numbers are mind-boggling, folks. 120,000 retirees leaving each month for the next 30 years. That's not going to happen. The two above scenarios will help somewhat, especially if we can tone down the rhetoric and realize that we need these people. And again, I'm going to get back on my soapbox. Retirees are awesome. I'm not retirees. We were okay. But immigrants are basically awesome. They bring so much energy and so much enthusiasm. There's a few that get involved with crime and kill somebody, and then that gets splashed across the news. But that happens with people who are born here too. So, oh well. So how are we going to do this? How are we going to fix this, folks? We're United Staters. We're the United States of America. We are powerful. We are awesome, and we're going to do it. We're going to raise the retirement age. Slide 34. Look, folks, to maintain the current ratio of workers to retirees, we need to raise the accepted retirement age to 72 or 73 by the year 2030. Now, it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen by 2030, but you saw that we're raising the age for the required minimum distributions. It's going to happen. If not mandated, retirement will simply become unaffordable or unavailable to more and more workers. And you hear people saying, I retired at 62, but I got to go back to work, or I want to go back to work. It's already happening. Retirees are returning to the workforce. Their health is good. They want to be productive. Businesses are accommodating older workers with fewer hours, more flexible work schedules. The largest demographic group of people starting new businesses are people in their 60s. You are now hearing politicians saying that we need to raise the retirement age. Look, just a few years ago, no politician would have dared say anything like this for fear of being lynched or caned to death. We will solve this problem. We have faced serious problems before. We're solving it now in kind of piecemeal. The American economy is extremely resilient. The American people are extremely resourceful. A combination of some or all the previous possible solutions will be implemented with or without formal planning and consensus. Although we Americans are very resilient and resourceful, we tend to be horrible at planning. It's the culture, right? We go to Europe, and they're planning and planning and planning, and we're jumping up and down and screaming, we got to do something. And the Europeans say, hey, we're still planning. So we, on the other hand, we want to do it. So ready, shoot, ready, fire, aim, right? So we will indeed be living in interesting times. Have you ever heard the alleged? It's not really. It's something that was created over here, but attributed to the Chinese. May you live in interesting times. It's supposedly a curse. And there might be something in the Chinese culture but they asked, where does this come from? The Chinese go, oh, we've never heard this before. But it's a great curse. May you live in interesting times. Slide number 36. Look, the bottom line. The bottom line, the nature of retirement will change. Of course, everything changes. Expect on living much longer than you ever thought you would. Yippee! Hooray! Expect on working much longer than you ever thought you would. Boo! Hiss! Start saving now. Grumble, bitch, gripe. You know, I hear people say, "Well, I want to retire by 50," and I say, "No, you don't." Assuming you love what you do, and goes back to chapter 1. Find a job that you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. You're going to want to continue to work, and your health will be good. Everyone's different. I have a friend who's retired about 4 or 5 times. He's very, very powerful engineer. Used to work for Qualcomm, electrical engineer, and he's got clocks that he builds in his house that are just incredibly complex. And he retired and he got bored and he went to work for a company about 3 hours a day or something like that. And then they realized how powerful he was, and they kept giving him more and more work. And he said, "I'm gonna quit. I'm retiring again." And then he got bored. This happened 2 times. And then he started his own fix-it service. You know, he'll fix your refrigerator, he'll fix your whatever. And so now he keeps him a little bit busy, gets him out of his wife's hair, and he's happy. Cool. So expect on living much longer, expect on working much longer. Start saving now. Now, we're ready for our final presentation on the final chapter of life: estate planning, death. See you in the final presentation of our class and of our chapter and of our life. Estate planning in our next presentation. Thank you so much for being in our class, dear students. You are so awesome.